there. Okay, so let's settle in. We're going to do a little bit of a meditation to start. Okay, this one you can close your eyes and just listen along. We can feel that there is a potential within us. We can also feel that this potential wants to be expressed. We can see that everyone is hurting in some way. And that pain is making them do crazy things. And that pain arises because of causes and conditions, and those causes and conditions that are causing us pain can be let go of. New causes and conditions can be initiated or taken up that are wise, skillful, and nobly worthy of an awakened being. This will then lead to a life of freedom and true authentic happiness, a life that expresses that potential that we can feel inside of us. I want you to imagine that world of potential now. Imagine a life of freedom. Imagine a world where everyone is free and truly happy. What does that world look like? What does that world feel like? And how would you think, speak, and act in that world? We call out now to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, masters and teachers of the Dharma, the 3 times and the 10 directions. Please consider us with kindness and understanding, and grant us your blessings, that these aspirations may be accomplished quickly. May it be that we all swiftly achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Today's talk is on right livelihood. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's very interesting that the Buddha's first 2 disciples were merchants, and that they saw something within the Buddha that made them. They were on the road, traveling, right? And the Buddha was on the side of the road, and they saw something in him, an ease, a joy, a grace, a freedom. They saw that, and they were like, there's something different about this person. And we would like that for ourselves, right? And the Buddha didn't say, like, stop being merchants, right? Didn't say, right? And that it's very interesting that, like, right within the Eightfold Path is right livelihood, right? Like I was mentioning, like, part of Buddha's mission was to help fundamentally transform society from a whole, right? It's all interrelated, interconnected, all one. So we need to look at, with clear eyes and open heart, different aspects of how we're showing up in the world and what we're doing, right? And part of how we show up in the world is work, right? There's a Zen story. Chang. Chang was a Zen master, famous for establishing the Zen monastic rule. He was always very insistent on working every day. Even when, like, old, he still worked. And old age didn't stop him, and he continued to work every day. The young monks, they were like, what? Why is Pei Chang still working, right? So they felt sorry for him, so they hid his tools. They hid the stuff that he needed to work and help. And he got mad, right? And he's like, why should other people work for me? He said, a day of no work is a day of no eating. Fundamentally tied in. And that work, you can infuse your work with your practice. If you can't, then you're doing your practice wrong, right? Now, there's an old Indian proverb, and how does it go? It goes, you can't work in the kitchen without getting a little mess on you. Right? There's no way you can go in the kitchen, prepare a meal, and not have some mess on you. Right? Of course, right? But see, we go into work, we go into these situations that might be a little bit unskillful, unethical, a little bit questionable, a little bit that goes against our inner guidance. And we spend days and days and years in these situations, believing that we're not going to get a little mess on us. Right? Right livelihood looks at what you're doing for work, shines a light on that situation, on what's going on. In most parts and presentations of the Eightfold Path, they really present, because back in the Buddha's day, it was pretty simple, not as like complicated life as we have right now. And he pretty much, like, for a lot of times when he presented this aspect of the path, he looked at and just presented sort of, I think it was 5 things to give up, what he called sort of like wrong livelihood. The trade in weapons, the trade in living beings, the trade in meat, the trade in drugs and drink, and the trade in poisons. Because I guess assassination was big back then, right? Poison, right? Yeah. Now for us, right, and a lot of teachers don't talk about this because they don't want people to get turned off, because this is a little too close to home for a lot of people, right? You can talk about my spiritual life, but don't talk about my work, right? Because I need to pay the bills. I need to put food on the table, right? And within the Buddhist path, we understand that. We understand that. And sometimes it's really hard to make choices that are wise, that are nobly worthy of you, right? But we need to look. We need to look. And we need to ask questions of what we're doing. Does the work that I'm doing serve me in my highest ideal? Does it serve the world? Is what I'm doing alleviating the suffering of others? Is my work stressful? Too stressful? Is my work positively impacting others people's lives? Is my work harming the planet? Is my work keeping me up at night? Is my work keeping me from my loved ones? Is my work preventing me from going deep into my practice of Dharma? What are the implications of my livelihood for my practice of ethics? Right? When we go back to last week, right? Does my work help me keep the precepts? What effect does my livelihood have on my meditative practice and my meditative stability? Does what I'm doing leave me time to meditate? Or does it leave me too stressed and too busy to meditate? Do I have enough time to go on retreat regularly? Am I able to make friendships with like-minded people at work? We spend so much time. Does your livelihood help you meet your financial needs? Does it enable you to give money to Buddhist and other good causes? Right? And if you happen to have financial abundance, and you're investing that financial abundance, have you looked at your investments? right? Are they in alignment with your ideals? Right? What we do for work has an effect on us physically, mentally, emotionally. How can it not? We're spending anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day, right? A day at these places. One of my teachers, he was asked the question, how much time should we devote to work? And his answer, as little as possible. As little as possible. Right? And if we go back to, there's nothing, right? There's nothing intrinsically wrong with money. But if we go back and don't understand why we're doing the things that we're doing, then this work, this pursuit, is going to be for all the wrong reasons, right? And that at the end of your life, are you going to be sitting there thinking to yourself, man, I wish I worked more? Unless your work is your vocation. Unless your work is in alignment with your mission, your purpose, your dharma, right? You're not going to think that at the end of your life. Right? So that's what we have to work. Like Pei Chang, right? No work, no eating. Right? We have to. We have to. My teacher a couple of weeks back, he said, hey, you make $2,000? Great, then create a $2,000 a month life. Just relax. We put so much pressure and that's the other crazy thing right now is that, like, if we look at the markets right now, we look at the housing, right? Houses are like $1 million for a fixer-upper. There's like a giant hallucination going on right now. Because we think we're separate from each other and we need to go and get and make sure, right? Right livelihood. A lot of times we just go about our livelihood because it's going to pay us the most. It's the most respected. We get praise, right? It helps build up that idea of ego, right? Ooh, right? Ooh, lawyer. Oh, doctor. Ooh, right? As opposed to, how about we look at our gifts and talents, right? Because there's things that I can do that you can't. There's things that you can do that I can't. That you can do that we both can't. And how have we looked at those gifts and talents differently and nourished those gifts and talents? Helped you express those gifts and talents and helped you apply those gifts and talents to make the world a better place, right? So how have we looked at right livelihood that way? Right? To practice right livelihood, you have to find a way to earn your living without transgressing your ideals of love and compassion. The way you support yourself can be an expression of your deepest self, your deepest ideals, or it can be a source of suffering for you and others. Our vocation can nourish our understanding and compassion or erode them. We should be awake to the consequences far and near of the way we earn our living. That's what Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh said, right? Again, he's saying these words because he doesn't see a living that's independent of life. Everything is interconnected and interrelated. So how can we not think that what we're doing for a living isn't influencing the world in some way, right? Now you see why, like, most teachers avoid this topic, right? Especially in the West. Forget it. Right livelihood, we just sort of get scooched over, right? Because it's tough to really like start to look at what you're doing on a daily basis and where you're getting your living from. Right? It's tough, right? You guys ever heard of Bhutan? Bhutan, and they have the gross national happiness, right? You know how we have that, like, the gross? Yeah. So the former Prime Minister of Bhutan said, "We have now clearly distinguished the happiness in gross national happiness from the fleeting, pleasurable, feel-good mood so often associated with that term. We know that true abiding happiness cannot exist while others suffer and comes only from serving others, living in harmony with nature, and realizing our innate wisdom and the true and brilliant nature of our own minds." How's the Prime Minister of Bhutan? They got it figured out over there, right? In regards to using that ideal to shape society, to shape the country, to shape choices that are being made. Right? Here's a quote. In the UK, there's a college called Schumacher College. Here's a quote from the program director, Julie Richardson, on right livelihood. "How can we align our lives and livelihoods toward expressing our deepest values, using our gifts and experience towards a right livelihood path, not just in pursuit of our own well-being, but in greater service of social and ecological well-being? Each personal journey towards right livelihood takes place within the larger context of the systemic challenges of our current social and economic system. We are all familiar with the multiple crises that the 21st century brings, but how are these macro challenges reflected in the micro challenges in our own lives? Making the connection between our outer worlds and our inner worlds is the golden thread that runs throughout right livelihood." We need to see how it is, because we believe that our job is independent of the whole. But no, it's not. It contributes. It influences. Right? It influences every aspect. Right? And again, is it nourishing us? Right? Is it being a blessing to the world? Wholesome? Right? We need to start to look at those things. A Zen Buddhist teacher, Hozan Sanake, says, "We are responsible for the world and to the world we live in. A gift has been given to us to share with everyone." And what that gift is the gift of this moment, how we're showing up in that moment, our interconnection to everyone and everything, right? And that gift is ourselves, to the world, to each other. How are we expressing our own gifts and talents, wisdom, heart-based wisdom with the world, right? Yeah. So right livelihood shows up and looks at that aspect of our lives, especially because we spend so much time there. And it influences so many things within the greater picture of the society we live in, the city we live in, right? The choices that are made, the politics that are put in place, the policies that happen, right? Yeah. So when we come back to the practice, our practice helps us build a foundation such that we can see clearly and we can open our hearts so that we can start to make different choices of how we show up in the world, how we spend our time, right? And it's in this world right now, this modern time, it's tough. It's way more complicated than when the Buddha had, right? Especially like environmental impact. There was no really concern about environmental impact back then because it was closer to the land than living, right? Back in that time. We have a very, even like we talked about while having tea, right? Just the simple choice of buying a shower curtain now is a complicated process. Right? And so in our livelihood, we need to look at a little bit differently. Right? A little bit differently. Yeah? Okay. We're going to do a little bit of meditation. Okay? All right. Thank you, guys.